Okay, so we're back. So we have this event handler right here. On our switch mode button game object, there is a button component, and that button component has this cool on-click area down here. This is basically where we specify, hey, what logic do you want to run? How do you want to handle that button click? Okay, so I'm going to click plus, okay? What game object do you want to look at? I want to look at the button that we're on, actually. So I'll go ahead and drag that in. Okay, well, what function do you want to run? Okay, we got all these components in here, right? But I actually want the switch mode button component, and then I want that on switch mode button was clicked function. So we've now set up, right, this button, when we click it, will now call this function on this game object, okay? That's kind of complicated, isn't it? But you need to know, like, what game object do you care about, which component do you care about, and then which function on that component, on that game object, do you want to call. If it's complicated, it's because you're asking for something that is inherently kind of complicated. I'm going to click switch mode, and let's see if we got any text here. And look at that. If I turn on my console, boom, clicked mode switch button. This is really clear if I run the game in focused mode. I can click it a few more times, and we get that nice clicked mode switch button message, okay? So I don't want to just print this message. I want to actually switch my scene, okay? I want to change my scene to a different scene. Well, what is the other scene? If we go to our scenes folder, we'll see that currently we are in the exploration scene, but there's also the interaction scene. Now, there's not a whole lot in it, just a couple buttons. And in fact, I'm going to get rid of these buttons because they might be maybe a little bit confusing, actually. Okay, so let's go back to the exploration mode. I'm going to grab this name for that scene I want to go to. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go scene manager.load scene. Okay, this is a function that allows us to load a scene of any name, so interaction scene right here. Okay, and let's see if we load up that scene when we click the button. Okay, so let's go ahead and play the game. And I can run around, okay, looking good. I can click switch mode, and we're in that interaction scene now. Now, it doesn't look like anything. It's just a black screen because the augmented reality functionality does not work on my laptop, right? But if you build it for your mobile device, then it will work, okay? Or at least it should, hopefully. Cool. But we actually have a problem. Once we get to the interaction scene, once we change scenes, how do we get back? Well, that's a bit of a problem. So our canvas right here, our canvas gets destroyed. When we go from one scene to the other, it gets unloaded. So we need a way to keep this canvas around even when we go to another scene. We want a global, persistent game object that doesn't get destroyed when we load a new scene, okay? And here's what we're going to do. There's one function that can do this for us, and I'm going to actually create a new component on this canvas. I'm going to call this, let's call this the main canvas, okay? Why not? It's going to be our primary canvas that's always going to be there, and so main canvas is what we're going to do, okay? So when this game starts, I want to tell Unity that, hey, this game object right here, canvas with capital C, this should always be available, okay? And you can do that very easily. It's called don't destroy on load. And then you simply provide the game object that you don't want to get destroyed on load. And this game object right here, what is this? This is how you specify the game object that this component is currently on. So this main canvas component is right here. It is on the canvas game object, and so this canvas game object is literally this variable, okay? And so there you go, a one-liner. Now let's see what happens. Hopefully, when we switch mode, we will see that the button is still there, okay? It's still visible, and it can get us back. Okay, so we're going to switch mode, boom, okay? Now if I click this again, I'm just going to reload the interaction scene. So our logic needs to be a little bit more advanced. So if we go into that switch mode button, we say, hey, when you click switch mode button, right, we want to go to the interaction scene, but only if we're not already there. So let's go to scene manager.get active scene, and then go to name, and then let's say, hey, if the name is currently exploration scene, okay, then we're going to load the interaction scene. However, otherwise, we're going to load that exploration scene. Okay, I think I accidentally deleted my ending brace there. Okay, does the logic make sense? When we click the button, it's going to check what scene are we currently in, what's the name of our current scene, and that's going to change which scene we try and load. Okay? So let's give it a shot. Okay, all right, so watch over here. You can see under Don't Destroy on Load, we now have our canvas and our switch mode button. So these, like anything in here, anything in this category will not get destroyed when we go from scene to scene. So let's go to the next scene. Switch mode. Okay, there we are. And we still have our button. It's still there. We got our AR stuff now. Our AR cursor is there somewhere. I'm going to switch mode, click, and we're back. Okay, very good. But actually, wait a second. Look carefully. We got a problem. You see, every time we go to interaction mode and then come back, and then go to interaction mode and then come back, and go to interaction mode and come back, we get another canvas, okay? I'll prove it to you, right? Go into any one of these canvases, grab the button and move it. We have a new copy of that button we've been clicking every time we go back and forth. Oh my goodness, this is not good, okay? This is not good. Our game's going to start to lag if we don't do something about this. Okay? Look at that. And I guess we can click on any one of them if we want to. And we'll get more and more and more and more, right? And they're just coming in. So the problem here is that every time we load the exploration scene, every time this line of code runs to get us back to that initial mapbox scene, right, we load all these game objects back. But that includes loading another new canvas, okay? But we already have a canvas because we didn't get rid of the old one. So we need to do something here, okay? And here is where we're going to use a technique called the singleton pattern. Singleton is basically an object of which you only ever want one. And if you think about the main canvas, right, we only want one of those, okay? We never want two. And yet, whenever we reload that exploration scene, it's going to try and give us another one. Well, we can stop it from doing that. And here's how we're going to do it. We're going to create a static variable. Okay, we're going to make it of type main canvas, and we're going to call it instance. This is the single instance that is allowed to exist. Okay. However, by default, it's going to start off as null. Right. That's always just how it goes if you don't initialize that value. So here's what we'll do. When this component boots up, when a game object with this component on it loads in and comes into existence, the first thing to ask is, hey, do I already exist? Does there already exist a main canvas object? Okay, so if instance is, let's see, not equal, or is actually equal to null, okay? If instance is equal to null, this is really good news. That means we're the first one. So instance variable, which is, it starts off in the program as null, is going to become us, okay? We're going to store ourselves in that instance variable, okay? And then I'm going to call don't destroy on load on our game object. Now, if instance is not equal to null, that means some other component of type main canvas has already claimed the instance. They beat us to the punch. They got there earlier than us. So what do we need to do? We need to destroy our game object. Okay, we need to destroy ourselves. We're going to delete that entire canvas that we are on, and then we're going to return and stop executing any code at all. Okay? And this is the singleton pattern. All right? There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at how it works. So this code might be a bit confusing, but it will become more natural the more you use it, okay? If you've forgotten what static means basically that there's only ever going to be one copy of this variable in existence, okay? Normally, when you create variables, like, I don't know, float health points equals 100, and float defense equals 2, right? Every instance, every object of main canvas that we create is going to have its own HP and its own defense, right? If you think about an enemy in a video game, you're going to not just create one enemy, you're going to create 10, 100, and each enemy is going to have different HP value and a different defense maybe. And so, by marking this right here as static, we're saying this variable is no longer associated with any instance of the class. It's associated with the class itself. So we will only ever have one copy, okay? So anyway, you can also think of it as multiple main canvas components are using this one variable to communicate with each other. The first one to claim this variable gets to survive, and everyone that comes after destroys themselves, okay? Slightly morbid. All right, let's go ahead and see if this works. Okay, so we got our one canvas. We're going to go switch over here. Now the moment of truth, okay? We want there to only be one canvas, okay? Boop, and there we go, one canvas, okay? We did create another canvas, but the canvas noticed that it was not the first one, right? Instance had already been claimed, and it destroyed itself, so we went back down to 1, okay? And we can keep going back and forth as many times as we want, and that canvas and that button, there's only ever going to be one, okay? So we're in very good shape. All right? So we're going to talk a bit more about this on Wednesday, okay? We'll talk more about this on Wednesday, but something you'll want to do in this project is you're going to want to make sure data and information, you're going to want to keep track of things between these two modes. You've got exploration mode right here, where we need to be able to see any trees that you've planted. And, right, we've got interaction mode, right here, where you're going to actually be able to plant trees when you're playing in AR on your mobile device. And now, when you plant a tree here, we need to get that fact that you've planted a tree. We have to get that fact back into exploration mode, okay? And so, static is a way to do that. Whenever you have a piece of static data, it isn't associated with any instance of a class, and so when we load a new scene and destroy the existing game objects, that data sticks around. Same thing here. Another technique you can use is to create a game object, store some data on that game object, put some components on that game object to keep track of things, and then you can mark that game object with don't destroy on load. And that will allow you to keep that game object around, and it will ferry data for you between the scenes, okay? So you don't forget things. One issue we see right here is that if I move over here to the diag, and then I switch to interaction mode to plant some trees, and then I switch back, hey, I'm back at Liberty Plaza, right? I lost my position on the diag. Well, how do we keep that data from disappearing when we go between modes? Well, let's go to that piece of data, all right? Player, latitude, longitude, and I'm going to mark it as static, okay? Now, this piece of data, there's only one piece in existence, and I'm actually going to mark it as public, okay? Public static, player lat long, okay? The reason you would do this is if you ever wanted to know what the player's position was, you could easily get it now by going the name of the class, the name of that public static variable, okay? For instance, if I wanted it in the orbit cam, I could easily get it by going the name of the class, and then what's the name of the variable? Player, boom, and there it is, right? I can just get the player's location just like that, no problem, okay? Anyway, now that I've marked this as public static, let's go in and make sure that that data is not going to get clobbered when we switch